Okay, so we're going to read this together. Actually, I'm going to read it to you, and then we're going to break down each paragraph together. All right, so our essay, The Capricious Camera, she is analyzing this photograph right here, okay? And so let's take a few minutes to really kind of look at this. The photograph has a caption. It is mounted Nazi troops on the lookout for likely Polish children. All right? So we kind of can place the time period here. It's probably the World War II era. We have, the Nazi troops here. We have a child, and she is carrying 2 baskets of something. We're not sure. We have these men on these horses. They have guns, and they're wearing, helmets. And it's very cold. There's snow on the ground, and you see that there's, you can see the horse's breath. And then we have some other people in the back. So, it's like, the child is smiling at the camera, but we don't know if the troops are, guarding her or if they're looking to take her. We're not sure. All right? So, she is analyzing this photo, and she's going to have to do some additional research to find out what's going on. You guys, in your paper, are going to have to do some additional research as well in order to fully understand what's going on in your visual. Word? Word. All right. So, I'm just going to read this little blurb about her. Ayad began college as an art major and produced this essay for a writing class in her sophomore year. The essay first appeared in 2001 in Mercer Street, a journal of writing by New York University students. With an artist's eye for detail, Ayad explores the elements of a photograph to find its meaning. The analysis takes her to Nazi Germany before and during World War II. All right? So her analysis is taking her to Nazi Germany before and during World War II. So we have got kind of some background information that tells us the time period of her photo. In the years between 1933 and 1945, Germany was engulfed by the rise of a powerful new regime and the eventual spoils of war. During this period, Hitler's quest for racial purification turned Germany not only at odds with itself, but with the rest of the world. Photography as an art and as a business became regulated and potent force in the fight for Aryan domination, Nazi influence, and anti-Semitism. Whether such images were used to promote Nazi ideology, document the Holocaust, or scare Germany's citizens into accepting their own changing country, the effect of this photography provides enormous insight into the true stories and lives of the people most affected by Hitler's racism. In fact, this photography has become so widespread in our understanding and teaching of the Holocaust that often other factors involved in the Nazis' racial policy have been undervalued in our history textbooks, especially the attempt by Nazi Germany to establish the Nordic Aryans as a master race through the Lebensborn experiment, a breeding and adoption program designed to eliminate racial imperfections. It is not merely people of other persecuted races who can become victims in a racial war, but also those we would least expect, the persecuting race itself. Okay, so if I were looking at a purpose for this paragraph, what might it be? Introduction. Okay, what does she include in her introduction?
Background knowledge.
Background of what?
Background of the war and what the goals of Nazism.
What else does she mention?
How they tried to create a master race.
Yes, master race. What else? There was an important role of something mentioned. What is it? Photography. And she mentions the Lebensborn. What does she not make a reference to? Exactly, the picture. She does not reference the picture. So in your photo analysis essay for your introductory paragraph, you're not going to reference your picture either. Do you understand? Okay, mine is about the government shutdown. So my picture is about the morning, the sunrise over, Washington when we had that first government shutdown. So in my first paragraph right here, that's what I'm going to be writing about. And I'm going to be writing about the climate and the mood. Yes?
So for my picture, is it okay that I did a scene from the original Frankenstein movie that referenced the lynching of the Ku Klux candidate? So is that okay that it's from the movie? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on here to paragraph 2. In paragraph 2, to understand the importance of this often shrouded side of Nazi Germany, we might look at the photograph captioned, "Mounted Nazi Troops on the Lookout for Likely Polish Children," archived by Katrine Clay and Michael Liepman. This black and white photo depicts a young girl in the foreground carrying 2 large baskets and treading across a rural and snow-covered countryside, while 3 mounted and armed Nazi soldiers follow closely behind her. In the distance, we can see farmhouses and a wooden fence, as well as 4 other uniformed soldiers or guards. Though the photograph accompanies the text without the name of the photographer, year, or information as to where it was found, Clay and Liepman suggest that the photo was taken in Poland between 1943 and 1945. All right, so she goes over what she knows about the photo, and she summarizes the image. So in paragraph 2, that is what you will do. Background on photo. If your photo has a caption, you are going to mention the caption here. Oh, sorry. Okay, so of the 13 paragraphs that she has written, you guys are only going to write 8. Okay? You are required to have an intro paragraph. That's a requirement. You are required to give us some background information about your photo. Cool? All right. So, background of the time period, intro. Background of the photo. So the photo has been introduced here. All right, paragraph number 3. Y'all, I'm sorry I sound so nasty. It's because some nasty teenagers infected me. Who is this young white girl surrounded by armed soldiers? Is she being protected, watched, persecuted? It would be easy enough to assume that she is Jewish, but unlike photos documenting the Holocaust, with this image, the intent is uncertain. In our general ignorance of the events surrounding this photo, the picture can be deceiving, and yet it is the picture that can also be used to shed light on the story. All right, so here she raises some questions. And she moves into what she is doing. So her purpose here is that she is coming to, or she is arriving at her purpose for analysis. And you're going to have to do that one as well. So she is arriving at her purpose for analysis. And the rhetorical questions that she asks, that creates a sort of ambiguity here. You know, she's saying, what is going on? We don't know this. You know, who is this girl? Are they protecting her? Are they watching her? Are they hunting her? All right, so, you know, all those questions kind of create that ambiguity that's important. And really streamlining her purpose. All right, paragraph 4. Looking just at the photo and ignoring the descriptive caption, there are some interesting visual and artistic effects that help a viewer better understand the circumstances surrounding this image. One of its most prominent features is the way the photographer decides to focus on only one young child in the foreground while including 7 Nazi soldiers behind her. The effect is overwhelming, and in gazing at the image, one is struck by the magnitude and force of the oppressing men in sharp contrast to the innocence and helplessness of the lone girl. By juxtaposing one child with 7 men, the image comes across strongly as both cruel and terribly frightening. In addition, the child in the foreground is a young girl, which only adds to the potency of the image. The photographer makes the soldiers appear far more menacing and unjust, in that there appears to be no physical way in which a young girl could possibly defend herself against these men. All right, so what is she writing about in paragraph 4?
The way that the photographer says she takes the picture.
Mm-hmm. All right, the way the photographer chose to take the picture with the girl in the foreground. Okay, so her purpose here is to begin analyzing the photo. And the 2 areas that she is analyzing the photo are the photographer, choice of position, and foreground and background. In the image that I chose, that I showed you guys, the sunrise on the shutdown, foreground and background are very important because in the foreground we see the Peace Monument, whereas in the background we see the Capitol's dome. All right, so foreground and background is something that you could potentially have as important as well. All right, so paragraph 5. What is additionally interesting about this particular aspect of the photo is that the 7 men are not grouped together or in any way concentrated right next to the child. There are 3 directly behind the girl, 1 a little farther behind and to the left, 1 even slightly farther behind and to the right, and 2 very off in the distance, walking in the opposite direction. This placement of the soldiers not only gives the photo an excellent sense of depth, but also conveys to the viewer a sense that the entire surroundings, not just the little girl, are being controlled and surveyed. It allows the viewer to imagine and wonder in what way other children, or perhaps just the other parts of the village, are being similarly restricted. For the young girl and the viewer, it allows no way out. All angles and directions of the photo are covered by symbols of oppression, producing an eerily suffocating effect. Okay, so what does she concentrate on in paragraph 5?
Background and out. everything looks so like guarded and there's not much freedom.
The effect of the men. You know, it's oppressive. So if I were looking at the purpose for this paragraph, I would say she's analyzing the mood of the photo. In terms of oppression. Okay, so here we have foreground and background, and the choice of the photographer in terms of positioning, and what he includes in the frame of the picture. And here we have kind of the mood of the photo. So these are two things that you might choose to analyze regarding your image. Okay, paragraph 6. The child is the only person in the photo looking directly at the photographer. Whether this technique was manipulated on purpose remains to be seen, but it goes without saying that the effect is dramatic. Her gaze is wistful and innocent. In contrast, the men occupying the rest of the photo, and most prominently the three mounted ones in the foreground, are gazing either away or down. While it is uncertain what the soldiers behind the child are staring at, their downward stare causes their heads to hang in almost shameful disgrace. They do not look at the child, and yet they do not look at the photographer, who is quite obviously standing in front of them. Is this because they do not see that there is a picture being taken, or perhaps the photographer is another soldier, and this picture is simply routine in recording the progress of their work? So how might we summarize paragraph 6?
Unless she's analyzing the way that the people are looking at it.
Miss Lamar,
Yes.
when the bell rings, I need Caesar Hurtado and Brian Mobley upstairs in the recruiter room, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Did y'all get that? So she's analyzing the way the subjects are or are not looking at the camera. Okay? So this is another small element of analysis. And it is gaze. Cool? All right, let's look at paragraph 7. If not a Nazi soldier, the photographer could be a Polish citizen. If this were the case, it might change our interpretation of the photo. Suddenly, the girl's facial expression and direct gaze seem pleading, while for fear of being caught, the photographer snaps the picture quickly, in the exact moment the soldiers are looking away. Perhaps the soldiers did not mind having their picture taken. Many Polish were considered, after all, their racial equals, and maybe they would have respected and appreciated an amateur photographer's interest in their work. Okay, so this is paragraph 7. How might we summarize paragraph 7? What is she questioning? Yeah. She questions the identity of the photographer. All right? And here, again, this is another small element of analysis. Okay, so here, paragraphs 4, 5, 6, and 7 so far, all of these are just small areas that she has chosen to analyze the photo. All right? So it's really like any of these could be paragraphs that you choose for the for your choice paragraphs, because like I said, you have to write 1, 2, and 3. But then you're going to have some choice of what you do. Now, you don't have to do exactly what she has done. You may choose color. She doesn't analyze color because her photo's in black and white. You know, you may choose to analyze color. That's fine. But this is just to give you some ideas of some things that you can start with. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. All right, let's look at paragraph 8. While all of these scenarios are seemingly plausible, the purpose of the photograph is still uncertain. There are also several possibilities. One is that the Nazis commissioned the photograph, as they did others at the time, to properly record the events surrounding the development of their plan. In an article entitled "The Camera as Weapon, Documentary Photography in the Holocaust," Sybil Milton describes the ways in which Nazi photographers worked. Nazi professional photographers produced in excess of 250,000 images. Their work was officially regulated and licensed. All photos were screened by military censors subservient to official directives of the propaganda ministry. Press photographers of World War II rarely showed atrocities and seldom published prints unfavorable to their own side. However, while the evidence is compelling, Milton recognizes another possibility that significantly changes the motive for the photo. Portable cameras and other technical innovations like the interchangeable lenses and multiple exposure film meant that non-professionals owned and used cameras with ease. Many soldiers also carried small Leica or Erminox cameras in their rucksacks or pillaged optical equipment from the towns they occupied. While it is possible that the photograph was taken by a soldier seeking to document the work in Poland for his own interests, this probability, against the numerous commissioned photographs and the nature of the subject matter being documented, is unlikely. The photo alone, while intriguing in its image, tells only half the story, and without a definitive context can become akin to a choose-your-own-adventure novel. In other words, the possibilities for photographic purpose are all laid out, but the true meaning or end remains undetermined. Unlike handmade art, which in its very purpose begs to be viewed through various interpretations, photography, and particularly photojournalism, captures a certain moment in time, featuring specific subject matter under a genuine set of circumstances. The picture is not invented, it is real life, and in being so demands to be viewed alongside its agenda, for without this context it may never be fully understood. Okay, so this paragraph right here, what does she do in paragraph 8 that she has not done in any of the previous paragraphs? Yes, she brings in outside evidence. And what is she talking about? Like, what is her purpose of this, or how could we summarize this particular paragraph?
To show it's more likely that a Polish citizen would have taken the photo.
Okay. So she's kind of really analyzing, you know, some different scenarios of who might, you know, have taken the picture and the accessibility of cameras. All right? Did I spell scenarios right? Okay. And here she's also bringing in outside research. All right, I want to mention the importance of bringing in outside research. All right, while this is not a required thing, bringing in outside research is important because of what? What does it do? It adds credibility. I would be so sad if you were not in my class, because you are the only one that is talking to me today. Mm-hmm. So this adds credibility, all right? And, which I misspelled, C-R-E-D, oh, that's right. Okay, so adding credibility, she has a very ambiguous picture, all right? We don't know a lot of things definitively about her picture. So her bringing in these outside sources does add credibility. It does show that she put in some research time trying to figure out what's going on. All right? Paragraph number 9. Anna, the bell is going to ring on me in a minute. When we turn to the caption describing the photograph, mounted Nazi troops on the lookout for likely Polish children. So what's this paragraph going to be about? The caption. The book Master Race and its accompanying story can now properly be discussed. Instead of typically dealing with the issues of a racist Nazi Germany as it relates to the Holocaust and the other forms of racial extermination and discrimination that were subsequently involved, Clay and Liepman's book looks at the other side of the coin. It is important in dealing with and understanding the concept of racism to realize that races are not simply those who dislike others. They are also those who worship themselves. All right, which I thought was a really interesting point concerning racism, is that she says racists aren't people who just dislike others. They're people that worship themselves. In Mein Kampf, Hitler outlined the inspiration for his racial tyranny by saying every manifestation of human culture, every product of art, science, and technical skill is almost exclusively the product of the Aryan creative power. He was heavily influenced by the work of racially charged popular science writers such as H.F.K. Gunther, who in his Ethnology of the German Nation wrote, "The man of Nordic race is not only the most gifted, but also the most beautiful. The man's face is hard and chiseled, the woman's tender, with rose-pink skin and bright, triumphant eyes." Quoted in Clay and Liepman, 17. Through the course of the book, the topic of racism in Nazi Germany focuses intently on the concept of racial purification. By following the work of the carefully selected, meaning those of impeccable Aryan ancestry, members of Himmler's elite SS Corps, Clay and Liepman introduced the history of Germany's failed Lebensborn experiment and the homes that were created by the Third Reich to breed and raise perfect Aryans. So a lot is going on in paragraph 9. All right, so in paragraph 9, she examines the caption and brings in research on Hitler, racism, and the Aryan race. So her purpose is to analyze info received from the caption. And she did this with outside research. If you have a caption on your photo, you will need to have a paragraph devoted to analyzing said caption. Cool? We will finish this tomorrow and start analyzing your pictures.